All right, next up, we're going to solve this problem. It says find the following if the cosine of alpha is 3/5 and the sine of beta is 5/13. Using those two pieces of information, we're going to have to determine the sine of alpha minus beta, the cosine of alpha minus beta, in addition to the sine of 2 times alpha. Now, I've already written down a few things that we will need in order to solve this problem. One thing we'll need is the ratio SOHCAHTOA, which gives us our trig ratios. The next thing we'll need is the sine difference formula. We will need the cosine difference formula also, and finally the sine double angle formula. So first off, let's look at the two ratios that we were given. We were given the cosine of alpha and the sine of beta. What we're missing right now is the sine of alpha, and we are also missing the cosine of beta. Now, in order to find these two ratios, we're going to use what we were given here, that the cosine of alpha is 3/5. Recall that the ratio for cosine from SOHCAHTOA, the ratio for cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So this 3 is going to go here, the side adjacent to angle alpha, and the 5 will be the hypotenuse. Now, we can use the Pythagorean theorem to find the opposite side here. However, we also can recognize that this right triangle is a Pythagorean triple. If the hypotenuse is 5 and one of the legs is 3, the other leg will have to be 4. Therefore, the sine, whose ratio is opposite over hypotenuse, will have to be 4/5. Next up, we're told that the sine of beta is 5/13. Now, once again, the ratio for sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so the 5 will go on the opposite side to angle beta. 13 will go on the hypotenuse. And we can use the Pythagorean theorem, or we can recognize that this is also a Pythagorean triple, so this adjacent side must be 12. Therefore, the cosine of beta is 12/13. Now, we have everything we need in order to solve for sine of alpha minus beta. Now, the sine difference formula states that the sine of a minus b is equal to the sine of the first angle times the cosine of the second angle minus the cosine of the first angle times the sine of the second angle. Now, for all of these problems, we will make A, which is the first angle, we will use alpha to represent that. B, which is the second angle, we will say that is beta. So that means the sine of alpha minus beta will be the sine of alpha times the cosine of beta minus the cosine of alpha times the sine of beta. And all of these ratios we have up here. So let's go ahead and substitute in. First off, the sine of alpha we found to be 4/5. The cosine of beta we found to be 12/13 minus the cosine of alpha we were given as 3/5, and the sine of beta we were given as 5/13. So let's go ahead and multiply. 4/5 times 12/13 is 48/65. 3/5 times 5/13 is 15/65. And 48/65 minus 15/65 gets us 33/65. and that's our final answer for the sine of alpha minus beta. Next up, we have the cosine of alpha minus beta. The cosine difference formula states that the cosine of one angle minus another is the cosine of the first angle times the cosine of the second angle plus the sine of the first angle times the sine of the second angle. So let's go ahead and rewrite this using our alpha and beta. So it's going to be the cosine of alpha times the cosine of beta plus the sine of alpha times the sine of beta. The cosine of alpha is 3 over 5. The cosine of beta is 12 over 13 plus the sine of alpha is 4 over 5 and the sine of beta is 5 over 13. So we'll go ahead and multiply this out. 3 over 5 times 12 over 13 gets us 36 over 65 plus 4 over 5 times 5 over 13 gets us 20 over 65. Now 36 over 65 plus 20 over 65 gets us 56 over 65, and that is our answer for the cosine of alpha minus beta. Next up, we have the sine of 2 alpha, where we will use the sine double angle formula. So the sine of double an angle is 2 times the sine of the angle times the cosine of the angle. So the sine of 2 alpha will be 2 times the sine of alpha times the cosine of alpha. So let's go ahead and plug in. 2 times the sine of alpha is 4 fifths, and the cosine of alpha is 3 fifths. So we're going to have 2 times 4 fifths times 3 fifths, and we can go ahead and put a 1 under the 2. 2 times 4 times 3 gets us 24. And 1 times 5 gets us 25. So that final answer is 24 over 25.